And thank you for joining me today. My name is Mark Jacobson, and I've been working as a tour guide now for over 35 years. I work locally for Day Tripper Tours, I should say locally in San Diego. That's where I'm from. I've worked for them for 12 years. I also work for Vacations by Rail, for Gate 1. So shout out to all you guys that have traveled with me before. I'm missing doing the over-the-road bus tours, but this has been kind of fun too, something different for me. I'm a certified member of the San Diego Professional Tour Guide Association. Of course, I see a lot of certified guides walking around here in Charleston doing tours. So anyway, hello and thank you to everyone for joining me. Thank you for your support. If you enjoy today's tour, just know that I do these walking tours every Wednesday at the same time. Future walks, next week I'm going to do the other side of Old Town San Diego. We're going to do the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead thing in Presidio Park. We're going to do a lot of different things. The Heritage Village, the Mormon Battalion, so kind of the other side of Old Town, things that we haven't done or don't usually do. And then the following Sunday, November 8th, I'm doing the other side of Coronado, the bay side, Coronado Island. I hesitate to call it an island, but sounds more exotic. So that's going to be on Sunday, November 8th at 11 o'clock Pacific for Day Tripper Tours. And so Old Town, Coronado. Best way to stay up to date on what I'm doing is to like Mark's Delicious Adventures on Facebook, and you can do that now. You also can do a watch party if you want to invite friends to watch along with you today. I do have a YouTube channel, also a website, also Mark's Delicious Adventures, so feel free to visit those pages. Word of mouth advertising, always the best way, so if you enjoy today's tour, please share it with your friends. It's really the way that I expand my base through your support. And the tour is free, however, I do work for tips, so if you're interested in leaving a tip, you can see up in the links there, there's a place to Venmo me or to PayPal me. I'll also send you an email after the fact. The tour today is going to last about an hour and 30 minutes. You can follow along on the map link that I provided up on the links there too. It's better to watch these tours on a computer or an iPad versus a phone. But if you are stuck with the phone, just turn it sideways horizontally and you're going to get a better picture. Don't be afraid to comment or ask questions. Just know that I can't always look at the questions as I'm doing these tours because it's just it's hard for me to do both. So occasionally I'll catch one here and there. So you can tell each other where you're from, make comments. People can kind of go back and forth. But if you do have a connection problem, just know that the problem could be on your end if you have a low BPS speed at home on your own internet, especially if you're not seeing anybody else that is complaining about their screen freezing. But if your screen does freeze, I would say just refresh it, and you can always go back to the very beginning and click on the link like you did to begin with, and start from there. If you lose the feed entirely, like I said, just go back to the link. And so today we're going to be exploring downtown Charleston, and if you don't know where that is in South Carolina, of course we're in the southeastern United States, just above Florida, and so we're in southeastern South Carolina too, near the Atlantic Ocean. We're only about 7 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. And we're about 5 hours east of Atlanta, Georgia, and about 2 hours north of Savannah, Georgia. This area is called the Low Country. And of course, you go, the other part of Carolina, South Carolina, is called Upstate. So you got the Low Country. This is the area, of course, that's very prone to hurricanes. And so we're going to be traveling today a distance of about 2 miles, and I'm going to point out some interesting sights along the way, and we're going to see some beautiful historic and homes and buildings, and also some incredible views from the tip of Battery Park, where the two rivers come together to form the Charleston Harbor at the tip. Fort Sumter is out there, so we'll be able to kind of see that from the distance. So just a little bit of general information about Charleston. Nicknamed the Holy City, you'll know why after this tour is over with. We're going to see so many churches, but they're beautiful. We're on a peninsula here. It's about a mile wide from east to west and about 3 miles long from north to south. We're going to be heading in a southerly direction towards Charleston Harbor. And so Charleston is actually the largest city by just a little bit in South Carolina. There isn't any really big cities here. 137,000 people in the city of Charleston, and only 800,000 in the metropolitan area. So it's actually the third largest metropolitan area behind Greenville in South Carolina, which are all about the same. It's all about the same. So those are the three big communities. So median home value here, Californians, you'll be shocked to hear this, about $350,000. So about half of what we have to pay in California, Southern California. We're going to be showing you some multi-million-dollar mansions, though. Most of those are $5 million. And I was just telling Patty that those mansions in California would be $25 million. So median rent here is about $1,370. So California, $2,100. Charleston has the busiest airport in South Carolina. That's a little bit of trivia for you. But what we're going to see today, of course, Charleston is very old, yet very well preserved. Its architecture is ranging from the early colonial period to plantations to the Antebellum Civil War, the time prior to Civil War. And this resulted in the downtown having a large variety of beautiful architectural structures, and these include some amazing art galleries, historic homes and museums, churches, monuments, and landmark restaurants. So where we're at right now, and I'm going to turn this around, is Washington Park. And so let me just turn this around real quick so you can see this a little bit better. So yeah, this is Washington Square Park, and let me walk up here and show you. This is the oldest public park in Charleston. This is a statue of Henry Timrod. He was a poet, but this park is really all about George Washington. This is the oldest public park in Charleston. Beautiful landscaping here, these beautiful live oak trees. I don't see any, well, there's some moss hanging off of a few of them, which, by the way, if you ever come to these, like Charleston and Savannah, these beautiful southern cities, and you think, oh, I'm gonna take some of that live moss home with me, don't do that, because they're filled with red ants, and some of the early colonists had to learn the hard way. They thought they would make great mattress stuffers, and that will make you itch like nothing else. So anyway, this is Washington Square Park, and honoring the father of our country. You see this obelisk here. Let me show you the top of it. And this is a memorial to the Washington Light Infantry, a miniature version of the obelisk in Washington, D.C. It's made of Carolina gray granite. It was unveiled in 1891. The memorial is 42 feet high and is inscribed with the names of important military battles. And then over here, let me get this back here, we'll get a different view. There is a statue of George Washington himself, and this was installed in 1999, so over 100 years after the obelisk. So let's get a good view of that. So you see, very picturesque with all these beautiful live oak trees. These are how the parks are in Charleston and Savannah. They're just gorgeous with these trees and beautiful vegetation. So the statue. So the trees are amazing. You feel very cozy in these fenced-in parks. And of course, in the summertime, it gets very steamy here. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the weather here as we make our way over to our next attraction. Charleston has very humid subtropical climate with mild winters, but very hot and humid summers. Significant rainfall. They get about 44 inches of rain all year long. Summer is the wettest season, and almost half of the annual rainfall occurs between June and September in the form of thunderstorms. And so fall remains relatively warm through the middle of November, and then winter is very short and mild, and it's characterized by and occasional rain. They do get a little bit of measurable snowfall a few times per decade. Freezing rain, though, is more common. The dew point from June to August ranges from about 68 to 71. And just so you know, if you don't know anything about dew points, over 65 is considered very uncomfortable, and above 70 is considered oppressive and dangerous. And I was asking somebody earlier today about working outside, like the horses, for example. Do the carriage tours happen when it's really hot? And he says, yeah, but first of all, they work less days than they're off. Or I should say they're off more days than they work, and they get breaks throughout the day, he said. So, and then the people, of course, take breaks in the summertime too. So average temps, January, a high of 56 and a low of 42. And in July, a high of 87 and a low of 76. Hurricanes are a major threat in the area during the summer and early fall, with several severe hurricanes hitting the area, most notably Hurricane Hugo, which of course happened in September of 1989. That did a lot of damage to the city. That was a Cat 4 storm. Now this building that you're looking at right in front of us, this is called City Hall. That was originally built in 1801 as a bank, and that's in the Adamesque style. And we get a little bit closer, you're going to see that there's some marble detailing there, but I'm trying to be respectful here because there's another tour guide that is doing a tour right here, a live tour. So we'll try to bypass her, but I'll give you a view here as we go by. Okay. Boy, I tell you what, those tour guides sure have loud mouths. So yeah, here's another view of the City Hall looking back. I love these circular windows with the decorative iron grating. So yeah, this was the first bank of the United States, built in 1801. So, but you can see this is a marble staircase right here. So you see a lot of really splendid buildings here in Charleston. Everything on this corner is really splendid. So I'm going to take you across the street here and show you a nice view. Doesn't look like there is somebody coming. Oh, it turned. Good. Now I'm talking to myself. So across the way here, you've got the post office and courthouse building. And that was built in 1896. That's a Renaissance Revival building that was built of gray granite from nearby here in South Carolina. And then across the way, we're going to head over here. You see this beautiful building here. This is St. Michael's Church. This is the oldest surviving structure in Charleston, religious structure. And it was built between 1751 in 1761 on the site of St. Phillips Church, a different location than here. And we're going to see St. Phillips Church later. But it was originally built on the site of St. Phillips Church in 1681, but it was damaged in a hurricane in 1710. And so that's when they came over here and then built this. And so they built this in the 1720s. Well, here's a carriage tour going by. It gets you a better view here of the church. Yeah, so this church was actually designed after a church in London. And you'll notice that there's a beautiful portico there. And that it's a two-story portico. The walls are made of brick that's stuccoed over and painted white, while the two-story portico was the first of its size in colonial America. And we're going to see the graveyard here in just a moment. And I did learn something on my tour that I've never heard before, that there's a difference between a graveyard and a cemetery. And you know, this hasn't been open. Looks like they just have the very front entrance open here right now. They don't have the church open. So anyway, let's go over to the graveyard. But yeah, the graveyard, the difference between a graveyard and a cemetery is that a graveyard is just for the church. And so whereas the cemetery can be, you know, stones for, you know, various churches, but this is, a graveyard is just for the church involved. So, yeah, this is, there's two signers of the Constitution that when South Carolina ratified the Constitution, two signers are buried here. And one of them, of course, is Pinckney. Pinckney was a former governor, but he was also a plantation owner, a politician, and his grave is right here. And so I just wanted to give you a sense of these cemeteries. The cemeteries are just beautiful just to walk through because, of course, many of these graves date back, you know, hundreds of years. And you've got the huge magnolia tree there, all these beautiful plantings, vegetation, tombstones. So again, this is just one of several churches that we're going to see, St. Michael's Churchyard. And so one thing that's kind of cool about Charleston is they have these little historical plaques all over that kind of tell you a little snippet of history. Like, for example, right here it talks about Charles Pinckney was one of the signers of the U.S. Constitution. And then also John Rutledge was the other one that is buried in this church graveyard. So isn't that cool? So as we make our way to the next sightseeing attraction, I should talk a little bit about an earthquake that happened here in 1886. And you see this lady here that is on the street. You see them all over Charleston. They're making these sweetgrass baskets. And this requires a tremendous amount of labor to make these baskets. But you can see how beautiful they are for, you know, various things, you know, for bread, for fruit, whatever you want to use them for. They are quite pricey due to the fact that you know, they're so labor intensive. So some of those baskets that we were looking at are like $150. So we saw a bigger basket with a cover yesterday that was like $2,000. So I guess somebody has some disposable income, huh? Yeah. So anyway, back to the earthquake. There was a big earthquake here in 1886, and many of the buildings in Charleston were damaged. That was August 31st, 1886. And just look at this ornate architecture. I just got to pause real quick and show you just the beauty of some of these buildings. This one here that we just went past, that has all of the beautiful columns. This is the South Carolina Society Hall that was erected in 1804. And so just all of this is beautiful. This is just a snippet of some of the things that we're going to see today. But yeah, that earthquake in 1886 was a 7.8 magnitude quake, and it damaged buildings in states as far away as Ohio. It killed 60 people. It caused more than $5 million in damages, and an estimated 14,000 chimneys were destroyed, as well as most of the buildings in the city. And so we're going to see a lot of these buildings that had to be fortified rather than tearing them down completely. They put supports on the sides of the buildings to sort of shore them up. But look at this beautiful building across the way here. I love the way they paint these buildings with the kind of the turquoise shutters, and they've got the red door. This building here, this church here, is yet another church. This is a Presbyterian church. We're headed down to show you one of the mansions, one of the many mansions that we're going to see. Of course, I'm not going to tell you about all of them in great detail, but I'll tell you about a few of them. But yeah, isn't that a beautiful building? First Presbyterian Church. And so across the way is the Nathaniel Russell House, and we're going to get a view of that here in just a minute. Look at these beautiful live oak trees. Many of these trees are, 200-300 years old, and I was reading where one of the oldest trees in South Carolina is 1,000 years old, so I think that's even older than my mother-in-law. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, that was kind of mean, wasn't it? So this is the Nathaniel Russell House right in front of us, and we'll go across the way here. You know what? I think I'm going to start from across the street so you can see it from afar before we go in there. So Nathaniel Russell was let's see if I focus on this. He was a wealthy shipping merchant from Rhode Island, and he built this magnificent 3-story federal-style, 9,600 square foot rectangular townhouse in 1808. And today it's recognized as one of America's most important neoclassical structures. Of course, it's on the historic register. But yeah, he was one of the wealthiest citizens at the time, so this is a way for him to really display his wealth. And we'll go inside here. They have a formal English garden. This was made of Carolina gray brick, even though the brick looks red, but it was made of Carolina gray brick. They've got the door closed now. We were over here earlier and they didn't. So anyway, we'll give you a sneak peek inside there. But yeah, over here to the left, you can't see it very well. Let's see if we can see it a little bit better down here. But they've got a formal English garden with gravel paths, boxwood hedges, and plants that were favored during the 19th century. Big magnolia tree there that you see. Let's see if we can get a bit of a view there for you. See the gardens there. But in the rear, of course, they had slave quarters in the rear. Most of these homes, of course, were built in, pre-Civil War. And so 18 slaves lived and worked here. And so they say this is the grand dam of all the house museums. And there's a lot of intricate structural details. There's also a nearby graveyard that you can visit after going into the home here. So that's, again, called your Nathaniel Russell house. We're going to go down and show you another house in just a minute, but while we do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Charleston history. Charleston was founded as Charlestown in 1670, named after King Charles II of England. Its initial location on the west bank of the Ashley River, now Charlestown Landing, was abandoned in 1680 for its present site, and it very quickly became the fifth largest city in North America within 10 years. One of the key cities in the British colonization of the Americas was Charleston, but Charlestown, as it was called then, played a very major role in slave trade, which laid the foundation for the city's size and wealth. And it was dominated by what was called a slaveocracy of plantation owners and slave traders. And the Royal African Company had a monopoly here and a large-scale slave trade in the 18th century. And historians estimate that nearly half of the Africans brought to America arrived here in Charleston. And so, despite its size, Charleston remained unincorporated throughout the colonial period. and its government was handled directly by the colonial legislature and governor sent by London, England. And election districts were organized according to Anglican parishes, and some social services were managed by Anglican wardens and vestries. And so finally it was incorporated in 1783 at the close of the Revolutionary War. And then eventually the state government moved inland to Columbia, and that became the state capital in 1788. But Charleston remained one of the top 10 largest cities in the United States through the 1840 census. And so it's the only major antebellum city to have a majority enslaved population, and it was controlled by a hierarchy of white planters and merchants, and they successfully forced the federal government to revise its tariffs during what was called the nullification crisis, and which eventually launched the Civil War in 1861. And what they did is they seized the Arsenal, Castle Pinckney, and Fort Sumter, which were all federal garrisons at the time. And then, of course, the battle ensued. And we're going to see Fort Sumter. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later. But first, I'm going to tell you about this next mansion called the Williams Calhoun Mansion, which is another fabulous mansion along Meeting Street. This is Meeting Street that we're on right now. We're headed due south. Meeting Street, King Street, which would be a couple blocks over to the right, is kind of the main commercial street with a lot of high-end shops and things like that. And then you got Bay Street, which would be to our left, that runs parallel to this street, north and south again, which would be over by the waterfront. So I'll give you a picture of this mansion here. This is the Williams Calhoun Mansion. And any of you guys fans of the movie The Notebook? Remember that movie, The Notebook? But this was used for that movie, starring, of course, Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, James Garner, Gina Rowlands, one of my favorite movies of all times. And so, but this is an Italianate, 24,000 square foot. And let me walk down a little ways further here so you get a sense of really how big it is. Impressive Italianate style building, 30 plus rooms. Let's see if we can, so you can see how big that is. 23 fireplaces. It has a ballroom that is 45 feet high. George W. Williams, it was built for him in 1876. He was a prominent businessman, and he inherited. He was inherited by his son-in-law, Patrick Calhoun, who was a grandson of John Calhoun, hence the common name, the Calhoun Mansion. And so in 2004, a lawyer by the name of Howard Stahl purchased this property, and it's currently being used to display his extensive, eclectic, and eccentric collection of artifacts and antiques from the Gilded Age. And most of the furnishings, though, are not original, and but of course the woodwork and the paneling remain, and they are. And then they've got some charming garden spaces. I got to get across the way here, and statues, fountains. Let's see if we can peek through the gate here so you get a little bit better view of that. So yeah, it was built for George Williams, but his son-in-law, Patrick Calhoun, actually got the home after Williams, and he was the grandson of John Calhoun. And so for that reason, it's called the Calhoun-Williams house. But isn't that something? Look how far that goes back. Yeah. Okay, so we'll keep going here. We're going to head down to the Battery, as it's called, and we're going to get some tremendous views from down here, water views. And of course, a lot of people are asking, always ask whenever I travel like this, you know, how is the mask wearing? Are people wearing masks there? It's pretty, for you from California, it's pretty much the same. It's really about the same here. Most people, well, of course, they're requiring masks indoors, but you see a lot of people on the street. I would say most people on the street are wearing masks. I think even more so than California, to tell you the truth. Yeah, so, but this is the tip of the peninsula. You remember I was telling you that this peninsula is 1 mile wide, which would be east to west, or west to east, and we're going down to the southern tip, so it's 3 miles long. And so this is also known as White Point Gardens, and that was named the White Point Gardens because at one time there were mounds of oyster shells that were once piled at the point. Oh great, we've got a tree chopper here. That's the bad part about doing tours in the middle of the week. You see all these maintenance workers. So let's get out to the tip here. Try to dodge some traffic so you get a nice view. Once I get across this street, then I think I'm home free, at least for a while. But yeah, this is a very famous Charleston landmark, the Battery. This is a public park that was started in 1837. And of course, down by the waterfront, we'll see a seawall that was originally used as military defense. Of course, now, they have shored up the seawall recently in order to withstand hurricanes. They did a study here a few years ago where it was determined that the Charleston Seawall would not withstand a powerful hurricane, so they put some money into it so that it would. And so we're walking towards the seawall. And when we get out there, of course, there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of dramatic views. But it was named for the Civil War Coastal Defense Artillery Battery at the site. And you see right in front of us here, this is actually cannon art. You can see the cannonballs. And they've got more of it down there. They've got an actual cannon down there. But this was like a battery for the Confederate forces during the Civil War. And this is wonderful to walk along the waterfront here. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing. Across the way is James Island. And this is one of just several islands. There's like a dozen islands in Charleston, and these would be the outer islands that sort of protect Charleston from hurricanes, although they don't offer too much protection. And then this body of water here, looking down this way, this is where the Ashley River comes in. And then down this way where we're going to walk, we're going to kind of turn to the left there, and we'll see another river that's coming from that direction. And that's called the Cooper River. Together they come together here and form the Charleston Harbor. And off in the distance, kind of where you see that sailboat in the middle, that is where Fort Sumter is. So it's kind of out on an island there. But this is Charleston Harbor, and if you kept going in that direction, kind of south, I guess that'd be northeast, that would be the ocean, the open ocean out there. So anyway, yeah, so look at these views. Just people come out down here at night to have a romantic picnic, that sort of thing. It's just a pristine place for picnicking, playing ball, just relaxing, laying out a blanket and just watching the day go by. One thing I haven't noticed very much of here either are homeless people. Very few homeless people. So they're a very popular tourist destination. It's also famous for its stately antebellum mansions, which we're going to see in just a minute. And Fort Sumter is visible. I don't know how well you guys can see that on your screen there, but it is right there. Fort Sumter would be like right there. And so this is the Cooper River side of the peninsula that we're looking at now. And so the Ashley and Cooper River, as I mentioned before, form the Charleston Harbor. So Fort Sumter, out in this direction, it's a sea fort. Of course, it's notable for two battles, the first of which began the American Civil War, and it was one of a number of special forts planned after the War of 1812, combining high walls, heavy masonry, and classified as third system as a grade of structured integrity. And work started on it in 1821, and it was incomplete in 1861 when the Civil War began. The attack on Fort Sumter is generally taken as the beginning of the Civil War, when the first shots were fired, and that was April 12th, 1861, when South Carolina militia artillery fired from the shore on the Union garrison. It was part of the Union at that point, so these were, both sides agree that the first shots were fired here, and the bombardment continued all day. It was watched by many happy civilians. The people here in South Carolina were really happy that it had started, because they wanted independence. And the fort had been cut off from its supply line and surrendered the next day. And so Major Robert Anderson took the flag with him as they evacuated. And then there was a second battle of Fort Sumter on September 8, 1863, which was a failed attempt by the Union to retake the fort, and that didn't happen. And so eventually it was reduced to rubble, and it remained in Confederate hands until it was evacuated as General Sherman marched through South Carolina in February of 1865. And one thing that people don't know is that at the end, the conclusion of the Civil War, it's forgotten. Only hours before President Lincoln was shot, a widely announced end of war celebration took place out in Fort Sumter on April 14th, 1865. And of course, you can go out there on tours. They have boat rides that'll take you out there for tours. Not quite sure why some people have to be super loud. I don't get it. So anyway, yeah, if you guys are having a screen freeze issue, you need to refresh your screen, especially if you see that nobody else is having a problem. So it's probably your BPS speed at home, okay? So Charleston Harbor, off in the distance, I don't know if you can see the bridge right there, the bridge. There's two spans there. That's the Cooper River Bridge. That's North America's longest cable-stayed bridge. It's about 1,500 feet, and it's connects historic Charleston with Mount Pleasant. Charleston Harbor, let's talk just a little bit about Charleston Harbor. Runs about 7 miles to the Atlantic, like I said. It has an average width of about 2 miles, and all except for the entrance channel is about 1 mile wide when it comes in off of the ocean. The depth here is about 18 feet. But the port of Charleston has dredged the bay, and in fact they've got a project going right now where they're dredging it to about 60 feet deep to allow for the big cargo freighters to come in here. They are actually the 7th busiest container terminal in the United States, and it has the deepest water in the southeast region. Regularly handles ships that are too big to transit through the Panama Canal, And a lot of the things that come into the Port of Charleston are cars and car parts for Charleston's auto industry. Their manufacturing business, such as Mercedes and Volvo. Now look at some of these beautiful mansions here, right here. Isn't that a beautiful mansion? I'll tell you a little bit about some of these grand houses. The address of that mansion is 1 East Battery, and that particular mansion is divided up into 3 different condos, and each of which sell for about $1.5 million. And so if it were to be on its own as just one house, it would probably be, $5-6 million. But we'll see some single family dwellings here in just a minute as we make our way. In terms of economy in Charleston, besides some of the things I mentioned, like shipping, the cargo business, auto manufacturing, they're also becoming a popular location for information technology jobs in corporations, IT work. Of course, it's a big tourist destination. The travel business is a big part of their economy, and they've got a considerable number of hotels, inns, bed and breakfasts, restaurants that specialize in low country cuisine, as they call this area. I've had shrimp and grits twice already. Boy, is that good. Look at this house. Isn't that something? Yeah. Most people do have masks on, yes. And so this is called the Battery. These are some beautiful grand homes along the Battery. I'll point out a couple of them to you as we make our way. So this one here that I mentioned to you is called the Louis de Saucer house, and again, that's the one that's divided up into 3 condos. Another beautiful mansion. I'll show you one down here, tell you just a little bit about some of these mansions. I mean, there's literally probably 50 of them, so of course we don't have time to talk about all of them, but it's definitely worth. This is just wonderful, coming and walking on this high Battery boardwalk, especially at sunset, and looking at these gorgeous mansions. But this one here, right in front of us, it's got kind of almost like a purplish cast to it. That one's called the Roper House, and the address of that is 9 East Battery. Just to give you an idea, that is a single family dwelling, and that would sell for $6.8 million. $6.8 million. But I love the detailing of the house. Really beautiful. And there's another one down here that I want to point out to you. But you can see that most of these are 3 stories. And these, of course, were built, this seawall that we see here was built in the early 1800s. This was built to protect Charleston from the tides. So you can see the rocks down here. And so all of this land that you see over here was all filled in. And then these mansions were built after the seawall was built. So all the way up until the Civil War era. And so these are all what's called antebellum mansions, which would be pre-Civil War mansions. But aren't they beautiful? So I'm going to tell you about this next one. I don't know if you can see it. On the upper level of this cream-colored mansion, there's I don't know what that is, a ghost. Someone's got a larger-than-life, I guess that's a skeleton ghost type of decoration up there. But this one here, on the left-hand side, this one's called the Edmondson's house, the Edmondson's house, and isn't that a beautiful Edmondson Alston house? And let me tell you just a little bit about that. This is one of Charleston's grandest and oldest historic homes, 3-story house that was built between 1820 and 1828. And of course it has a panoramic view of the Charleston Harbor and the High Battery. And it's made of brick and stucco that's been painted over. and it's mostly surrounded by a wrought iron railing fence built on top of a 3-foot brick wall. The front staircase leads to the 2 drawing rooms in the second floor with small rooms behind them that once served as withdrawing spaces, one for men and one for women. And it has 14-foot ceilings. It's English Regency style. That is kind of a Greek revival combination. Was constructed for Charles Edmondson, who was a Scottish immigrant, and he purchased this low sandy lot in 1817, which was fit for residential construction as soon as the seawall was built by the city officials in 1820. And he wasted no time after the seawall was built, building his showplace. But in addition to the mansion itself, he's got a kitchen and servants' quarters, horse stables, and facilities for carriages. 95% of the decor is authentic, and it's been so well maintained that little restoration has been needed. And the house offers a perspective on what life was once like in Charleston. So that's called the Edmondson Alston House. Isn't that beautiful? And looking out over here, you see kind of this almost like a pier that juts out here. That is actually the Charleston Yacht Club. We're going to go walking by that in just a moment. Let's see here. I was going to tell you a few more things about some of these homes that we're seeing here. So this one here is another one of the big battery mansions. This one's called the Charles Drayton House, and this is 25 East Battery. This is where we're at, and this is a $5 million home, but that's kind of done in the Victorian style. But just look at the decorative railings on the balconies. And of course, a lot of these homes, I shouldn't say a lot of them, some of them have private tours. You know, they've been acquired by the Historical Society. And so there's many different homes here in Charleston where you can do a tour if you want to. But a big part of coming to Charleston, of course, is seeing these beautiful homes, seeing the beautiful waterfront. It's just a quaint city. You know, it's kind of like time has passed it by. You sort of feel like you're in another time. You know, it's just really something to come here. So life is definitely a lot slower here. So now what we're going to take you to see is one of my favorite parts of Charleston. So definitely stick with me. Oh, you know what? I was going to tell you a little bit here. This is kind of interesting. See if I can find a good example of this. I don't know how well you can see this, but like in this house, for example, let's see if I can zoom in here a little bit. So just above the windows on the lower level, you can see kind of what almost looks like a decorative circle, just sort of to the left of the arches. That's actually the shoring up. Part of what the shoring up is that they had to do after the 1886 earthquake. Rather than tearing a lot of these structures down, they chose to shore them up however they could, so that, you know, they put these metal beams through the length of the house, and then they tried to hide them. So you see them all over. Some are disguised very well, and they've even, you know, put a decorative piece over the top of it so you can't hardly tell. And then some of them, of course, are very obvious that, you know, they sustain damage. So again, you're looking out at the Charleston Yacht Club, and this would be the end of the Ashley River. The two rivers come together here to form Charleston Harbor. But what we're going to take you to see next is Rainbow Row. You've always seen these beautiful postcards with all these beautiful brightly colored homes. If you've ever been in San Francisco and you see the painted ladies up there. Kind of the same thing here. They call it Rainbow Row. Just a couple things while we make our way up there, just a few little known facts. Charleston was the 4th largest city in colonial America and the wealthiest in all of colonial America. And Charleston also boasts the very first public college, museum, and playhouse in America. And is also the home to the very first golf club in America. And that was established in 1787. So yeah, there's a lot of firsts here in Charleston. If you're thinking about coming here for a vacation, the tour that I'm doing today would be a good highlights tour. Some of you probably have traveled and have seen I'm going to turn this around real quick so you can see me. Some of you probably have traveled and taken the trolley tours in a lot of different cities that you have visited. They do not have trolley tours here. If you want to do a guided tour, you pretty much are, the most popular thing is the carriage tours, the horse and carriage tours. So you see, she said there's 5 companies in town that do the horse and carriage tours, and they're about $35 for an hour to do a carriage tour. And they have different routes. So if there's something that you want to see and you're coming to Charleston, my advice to you would be to make sure whatever carriage tour that you choose to take, that you ask the company, are you going here? So a lot of the highlights that we're doing today are I would say the main highlights of Charleston. So if you come here and do a carriage tour, you definitely want to try to do at least some of the things that we've seen. I would say, definitely Battery Park and the beautiful mansions that we've seen. So let me turn this back around and I will start showing you these beautiful houses of Rainbow Row. There's 13 very colorful houses which are part of what is called Rainbow Row. And so they're across the street here. And I am going to cross the street here eventually, but I just wanted to give you a view from both sides. So this is sort of the start of it. But it's named for a series of 13 colorful historic houses, very popular tourist attraction here in Charleston. It's one of the most photographed sites in all of the South, and it represents the longest cluster of Georgian row houses in the United States. And these houses mostly date between 1730 and 1750 and were originally right on the Cooper River. However, this area again is all landfill as of 1820. And so the term Rainbow Row was coined after the pastel colors, of course, that the houses are painted. And they were restored in the 1930s and 40s. And of course, there's some myths about, why they did this, why they started painting these houses, these wild colors. Let me get across the street here. There's nothing scarier than a tourist in a rental car. So yeah, this gives you a better sense for how beautiful these are. But one of the stories is that they painted these colors because of intoxicated sailors coming in from port. They could better remember which house they bunked in, which I don't think makes that much sense, because if it was dark out, you couldn't see what color the house was anyway. So another story is that the building's color date from their use as a store, and others say that they were used so that owners could tell their illiterate slaves which building to go shopping in. And so but they say that the real truth behind Rainbow Row is that it's not nearly as significant that in 1935 a judge and his wife decided to paint their home a lively pink and their neighbors liked it so well that they began to do the same. And so they say that that is the real story. So anyway. I'll give you pictures here of all these pretty houses. Now this is kind of an interesting story. You see this door, and at first glance it looks black, doesn't it? But if you get up a little closer to it and you look at it from a different angle, you'll notice that it's really a dark green. It's really a dark green, and that color is referred to as Charleston green. It's and so the story goes that after the Civil War, the Union, of course, sent down supplies to help the South rebuild, and part of the supplies was black paint. And just a act of defiance, the Southerners who were repainting their property decided to put in a little bit of sunny yellow in order to change the color, so it wasn't black, and so it became known as Charleston green. So one would never be able to tell, but they didn't want Yankee black. They wanted Charleston green. This is my favorite one right here. Yeah, look at that. My favorite color, my favorite planting. I want to live here. Here, let's look up close. Let's see here if we can get a better view from the top. So it's very charming. Yeah, so it goes on for a block or two here. We're going to see some more really pretty homes. Look at this planting. I love the flowers too. See if we can back away here a little bit from the property so you can kind of see it from the street a little bit better. And I would have to say my second favorite one, I'm partial to purple. And I'm sure most of you guys don't really care what my second favorite one is, but I'll tell you anyway. It's this purple one right here. I just love it. And I love these colors. Pink, purple, green. They're just so pretty. And there's, again, the Charleston green, dark green that looks black. This door is painted kind of a teal color. Okay, so that's the end of Rainbow Row. Let me tell you a little bit about the next place that we're going to go to. We're just getting really close here to the Old Exchange and Provost Dungeon. And yes, I did say that right, dungeon. They do have a real dungeon here, and of course at this time of the year, super popular with ghost tours. But on this next block, by the way, this is a crepe myrtle tree, very popular here in South Carolina. You see them all over. I love some of the vegetation here. It just is so lush and beautiful. And if you've ever come here, in the spring, of course, the plantations are just ablaze with flowers. That has traditionally been the most popular time to visit Charleston and Savannah, is during the spring flower season. So let's just pan in on this a little bit better. So this one here, this is called the Old Exchange and Provost Dungeon. The dungeon is right there. And we'll go over a little bit closer here so you can see it. But this was known as the Customs House and the Exchange originally, and it was built between 1767 and 1771. It served as a variety of uses, civic functions over the years. It was a prisoner of war facility during the Revolutionary War. The site of the South Carolina Convention to ratify the U.S. Constitution in 1788. World War I, it served as a Army headquarters. World War II, they had a USO facility here. And then in 1965, Half Moon Battery a 1698 fortification was discovered underneath the building. And today, it is, they've got the dungeon down here that you can take a private tour of. Let's see if I can get across the street here without killing myself. But the Provost Dungeon tells the story of pirates and colonial days, and it offers a personal dungeon tours by docents. And it's very entertaining, very educational, and it kind of explains the history of the building. And of course, there's ghosts that haunt this building, they say, including the ghost of Isaac Hayes. I want to get across here so I can show you a little bit closer look. But yeah, this is called the Old Exchange and Provost Dungeon. Okay, I think we're good here to go across. Well, maybe not. Okay, there we go. So you can see that they have, from the outside here, this is a real dungeon. They have it boarded up, but they will, on the tour, they actually take you down into the dungeon. So that would be kind of a fun thing to do if you like haunted tours, things like that. Now this is kind of a sobering part of the tour. This talks about, of course, the slave auctions that took place here in South Carolina. There's a sign all about it here that, you know, Charleston was one of the largest slave trading cities in the U.S. So that talks all about that the slaves were sold in this area. And we're going to actually take you over to see an actual building that you can take a tour of that's called the Old Slave Mart. And gosh, it's just kind of hard to imagine that ever took place. And I just hate that title, Old Slave Mart. You know, like you go there and actually to buy something. But of course, you know, slaves were property. Plantation owners bought these slaves and they owned them. So I took a couple plantation tours when I was up in Tennessee, and of course after the Civil War was over and the slaves were freed, of course many of them were given the option of either staying on at the plantation and being paid, or, you know, they could go on their merry way. But one of the guides was saying that particular plantation, I think that was the Belle Meade plantation in Tennessee, that a lot of the slaves, I think she said about half of them chose to stay. And I asked her, I said, well, was it because the plantation owners were kind, or was it because the slaves knew nothing else and, you know, they were afraid to leave? And she never really answered the question, but she did kind of abruptly say, well, you know that there's more slavery in the world today than there used to be back then. And I kind of thought, well, that doesn't really have anything to do with anything I asked you, but but in any case, yeah, really an interesting time. But I'll take you to see this building called the Old Slave Mart, where they actually held slave auctions. And from Civil War, Revolutionary War, and World War II history, of course, many of these sites that we're seeing in Charleston, you know, they have some of each of those time periods that I mentioned. One of the most unique and significant historic sites is this next one that we're going to see, called the Old Slave Mart, which was in the mid-1800s housed an antebellum slave auction gallery where they could come here and look at the slaves and decide who they wanted to buy. And so let me get down about halfway here on the block and I'll show you the building. This is one of my favorite streets right here too, because I love these old stone streets. And you know, one thing about the Low Country that you find out is looking at these stones is that they do not have any stones in the Low Country. And so when these wealthy aristocrats came here from England, they built all of their expensive homes in England with stones. And so in this area, there are no stones. This is sand, low country. And so they had to make bricks like these bricks here. If you look at some of these bricks, you can tell they're made by slaves because you can actually see thumbprints. So they had to kind of create their own stones out of materials that they could make into bricks. But across the way here is the Old Slave Mart Museum, it's now called. And so you can buy a ticket and go in there. But it originally consisted of a 4-story jail, slave jail, a kitchen, and a morgue, or a dead house, and added to the National Register of Historic Places for its role in Charleston's African American community. But the building was constructed in 1859, and it's believed to be the last surviving slave auction facility in South Carolina. And since 1938, though, it's housed the Old Slave Mart Museum, which interprets the city's slave trade past, and includes an interview of a former slave who relates his experience from slavery to emancipation. And the Old Slave Mart was originally part of a larger slave market known as Ryan Slave Mart, and it covered a large enclosed lot. But this is a Gothic revival Romanesque structure, 67-foot by 19-foot brick structure with a stuccoed facade. Originally contained one large room with a 20-foot ceiling, and the arched entryway originally held an iron gate, which was replaced by simple doors in the late 1870s, but has been retained today. So slave auctions were held at the site from 1856 to 1863, but it's a sobering look at our nation's past, and also educational. So if you ever go in there, give you a little bit closer look here, as long as we're, so you can see the right above the entrance there, it says Old Slave Mart Museum. Okay, so I've got a number of other things here that I'm going to show you that are very interesting. I think they are anyway. We're going to see two of the most spectacular churches in Charleston when we go around the corner here in what is called Church Street. And across the way, across this beautiful little cobblestone street that we see, look at that beautiful pink house. I love that little house. That little house would probably sell for over $1 million. Very expensive to live in the historic part of Charleston. This is also the French Quarter. The French Huguenots, which were Protestant, were expelled from France. We're going to see their church here in just a moment when we go around the corner, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So we're going to get a nice view when we turn the corner here. You see St. Phillips Church there. We're going to get a closer look at that, but before we see that, we're going to see the French Huguenot Church, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. We're going to end up at the Charleston City Market at the end of this tour, and you definitely want to stick with me because that's very interesting to see the Charleston City Market. A lot of African American vendors that are selling the sweetgrass baskets, and then they have a lot of things for sale like rice, that is grown here in South Carolina. Also tea, the locally grown tea. Oh, we've got an artist here who's painting a picture of the French Huguenot Church. Give me just a second here. Wow, pretty impressive there. So, I want you to see the top of this. So, The church has the distinction of being the only remaining independent Huguenot church in the country. It was founded in the 1680s. It has about 450 congregants by 1700. And the original sanctuary was built in 1687. It was deliberately destroyed as a fire break in 1796. And so this structure that you see was replaced in 1800. I'm sorry. Yeah, back up a minute. The original structure was replaced in 1800, but then that had to be demolished. And then in the mid-1800s, they built this structure, which is a stucco-coated Gothic revival sanctuary. And so, of course, the question is, who were the Huguenots? Let's get a little bit closer here. My gimbal's doing funky things, so let's see here if we can get a little bit closer. See if we can pan up here a little bit so you can see the top of this. Yeah. So the Huguenots, they were Protestants, which lived in predominantly Catholic France. They faced persecution throughout the 16th and 17th centuries. Following the revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685, many Huguenots fled France for a variety of areas in the world, including Charleston. And so the city's early congregation included many of these refugees and their descendants, and they continue to play a role in the church today after many decades. And so services here are still held in both English and French. And this would be what is classified as the French Quarter of Charleston. I do definitely see a lot of similarities between Charleston and New Orleans. It's got a similar vibe. Charleston is kind of more like a calmed down, civilized, smaller version of New Orleans. New Orleans is kind of, no holds barred, crazy. So Charleston, I'm sure, probably is crazy too at night when it's not, COVID related. Right now, of course, things are being so affected by COVID. I was talking about tourism being a big part of the industry here. Our carriage tour guide said that the industry is down 70% this year in Charleston, which is pretty much true of everywhere you go. So this is St. Phillips Cemetery here, and I'm going to get around the front side of St. Phillips Church so you can really see it from a better vantage point. Yeah, so this is an Episcopal church, and this church would be considered the center of Charleston, and you can see it from pretty much any angle. So let's see if we can pan up here. It's so big that it's kind of hard to show it to you because it's let's see if we back up here a little bit. Kind of your classic picture right there. Yep, St. Philip's Church. So that's that classical revival style again. You can see the Greek style columns there on both sides of the sanctuary. Yeah, but that's an Episcopal church, and then it's got the adjacent cemetery. I'm going to come around and show you another church here in just a moment. And then we'll end at the market, where the market is actually just one block ahead of us, but I'm going to make a little jog here to the left so that you can see this other church. But you see how many carriage tours that there are here. The carriages are everywhere. our carriage tour that we did yesterday was kind of funny because he was taking us down a lot of side streets, I think on purpose, because he kind of wanted to avoid, traffic. And so we saw a lot of parking ramps. And so I don't know, he kind of was a different sort of guide that we had yesterday. So anyway, we're going to come up here to the round church in just a moment. Just ahead of us, if we were to go about 3 more blocks ahead of us, would be another street called King Street. King Street is the main kind of commercial street that runs north and south through Charleston. It has all the high-end shops, like the Apple Store, things like that. And so, of course, they do have all of that. One thing nice about King Street, too, if you come here during the holidays to Charleston, because all of those businesses are in old historic buildings, they do dress their windows. And so during the holidays, it's a real special time to come to Charleston to get that Christmassy feel, take a carriage ride. So this church that we're seeing over here to the left, we're going to come around to the front side of it, but it's called the Circular Church, even though it's no longer circular. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. Boy, that's loud. It's kind of a noisy day today. Yep, so Circular Congregational Church right here in front of us. Come around to the front side here so we can see it a little bit better. They've got the cemetery or graveyard, I guess, in the back. And so it's the original church that was built here was circular. You can see it still is kind of circular, but they say it's no longer really a circular church, even though they still call it the Circular Congregational Church. But let me come around the front side here so you can get a better view of it. When we get down here, we'll go into the gates so you'll see it a lot better. It's kind of nice because they have the gates open so you can at least walk into the property. You'll notice also that there are some graves above ground, sort of like what you'd find in New Orleans, with the water table being so high here. A lot of times they would bury their dead in crypts, and each family will buy a crypt, and they have different rows, and eventually, the most newly dead people get on the top, and as time goes on, then they work their way down to the bottom, and eventually when they get to the very bottom, they're just dumped their remains are dumped into the bottom of the family crypt. So you're looking at a different building than the sanctuary. Here's the sanctuary here on the left, but this is actually the parish house, and the parish house is an original building that was built in 1806. Robert Mills was one of Charleston's leading architects. Let me see if I can get that better picture of that. And if his name sounds familiar, he designed the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. When the round church was originally built, at the same time that the parish house was built in 1804, it was a round building, and it had a big roof, and it was one of the first major domed buildings in North America, but it burned down in 1861. And actually what was here before that was called the White Meeting House. The White Meeting House. And this street over here on the left-hand side was called is called Meeting Street. And so that name Meeting Street actually is derived from the original structure that was here called the Meeting House. And of course, at the time, the real meeting houses were like the Church of England, which dominated. And so this was a meeting house for the non-Church of England society. So anyway, this current building that you see right here is the third building built on the site. It was built in the Richardson Romanesque style in 1890. It's a modified cloverleaf design. You can see it's still got circular features. And like I said, it's continues to be known as the Circular Church. But it's one of the more impressive landmarks in Charleston, the Circular Church, along with the church graveyard and the parishioners' house. So anyway, that's the last of our churches, and we're going to make our way up to the Charleston Market so you can see that, and then we will be done. So again, this is the Meeting Street that we're on. It's one of the main north-south arteries through Charleston Peninsula. Over to the left, again, would be King Street, the main shopping street with the big high-end shops. Just ahead of us, about a block, is the market, the Charleston City Market. So, very interesting place to go. Charleston City Market, it was established back in the 1790s, and it stretches for 4 city blocks between Meeting Street, which we'd be on the far west side, and Bay Street on the east side. So it's about a 4-block. You notice the golf carts. People are allowed to legally use golf carts driving around Charleston, and our horses our horses really weren't bothered, but our tour guide, also the driver of the carriage yesterday, he was pretty bothered by the golf carts and people that were zooming by. Yeah, but you can legally use a golf cart in Charleston. One thing you don't see here are big tour buses. You see smaller tour buses, like mini coaches. And then, of course, you don't see like the tour trolleys that you do in a lot of towns. And so people are, like I said, use the horse-drawn carriage tours. And, I think $35 is pretty reasonable for an hour on one of those horse-drawn carriages. Because I've been in other cities before, to do a horse-drawn carriage ride, and it's usually a lot more than that. So I thought 35 was pretty good for that. So, okay, so we're coming up on Market Street here, and so we're going to be on the west end of the historic Charleston Market. I want to tell you about this building right in front of us that we're seeing, this yellow building. This is the Confederate Museum. We'll get a better view here in just a minute. Yep, so this is the Confederate Museum right here. Let's get a little bit better. Yeah, there you go. So when this was originally built, it was the east or the west entrance for the Charleston Market, which you see stretching down the length 4 blocks down that way. So this was originally meant to be the front entrance, kind of a grand front entrance to the Charleston Market. Somewhere along the line, 1899, this beautiful Greek Revival building raised some money, and they started a Confederate Museum, and it's been a Confederate Museum ever since. So you see the top of it there. Very nice building. And so the portico contains 4 Roman-style columns that support the pediment, and it's accessed by a double flight of stairs. You see that beautiful iron work. And it was built in 1841 as a copy of the Temple of Wingless Victory in Athens, Greece. And yeah, so it's been a Confederate Museum since 1899. The Daughters of the Confederacy began using the hall then to display Confederate artifacts. So inside you can see cannons, uniforms, battle flags, swords, even South Carolina's secession flag. When they seceded, they were the very first state to secede from the Union. So, okay, so I'm going to take you through the market real quick. Part of it is indoors, part of it is outdoors now due to COVID. So, it just give you an idea of what is available in here. You see the sweetgrass baskets there again, very popular. Jewelry, lots of jewelry here. This is a stone. One of our front desk is made of this at the hotel that we're staying at. So you just see a lot of art here, beautiful art. I came over here and I bought 4 pieces of art. Let's see here. Here's some more art. If you ever been to Faneuil Hall in Boston, it's kind of like that. Or the French Marketplace in New Orleans, it's kind of like that too. Here's something that's kind of popular. They have their own brand of rice, Carolina Gold rice, that's grown locally. And so that's for sale here. They also have their own local tea that's for sale that they're very proud of. This guy has a lot of beautiful pictures. I bought pictures here today. Hi. And so I'm telling them all about your art. 123 people watching. So anyway, let's see. And then you can see here's some chicory coffee from Cafe Du Monde in New Orleans. So stuff like that, you know. Look at this. Peach, pecan, and amaretto. Oh, that's different. I was going to see if I could find some of that tea. Oops, excuse me. And let's see. Yeah, there's some more of that rice that they have for sale. Grits. I've done a lot of grits while I've been in Charleston. So here's some more of the city market. So, you know, you see some really nice quality stuff, and then you see some, maybe some a little bit junky stuff. But then, of course, you've got things like, you know, local chocolates. I love these dark pecan turtles. And these milk chocolate peanut butter cups. Those are good. I gotta hurry up and leave Charleston before I gain more weight, because I've been killing myself on this good Southern cooking. So anyway, that's Charleston Market, and it goes on for 2 more blocks. And again, this portion is inside, air conditioned. There's restrooms here, and then they've got a portion of it that's outside too. 2 more buildings ahead of us that are outside buildings. But you can come here, have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner. They've got a lot of nice little restaurants here. Some more of the sweetgrass baskets there for sale. You see them close up there. Okay guys, so I'm gonna sign off here. I sure hope that you enjoyed the tour and that you got something out of it. I know I sure have enjoyed telling you about it. If you've ever thought about coming to Charleston but never have been here before, I would say definitely come here. You would love it. I love it. I want to come back, and time and time again. So just really a nice place. And anyway, thank you again for joining me. Next Wednesday again, we're doing Dia de los Muertos in Old Town, San Diego, as well as Presidio Park, Heritage Park that have all the restored Victorian houses, and the Mormon Battalion. So that's going to be next Wednesday. And then on the following Sunday, the 8th, I'm doing the other side of Coronado. So that's through Day Tripper Tour. So anyway, again, thank you for joining me, and so long from Charleston. Bon appetit and happy travels. Talk to you later. Bye.